Step 1. Recognition, awareness. The first step on your journey towards heaven is to realize that you have two ways of seeing the world, through your ego self and through your spiritual self. You are more than your physical body, and more than what you see, hear, taste, touch, and feel with your 5 senses through your physical body. Your ego self has been described by other authors, such as Deepak Chopra, Eckhart Tolle, and Neil Donald Walsh, as your false vision of yourself, because it deals with and acts on only what it can sense through the 5 senses that comes with your physical form: seeing, hearing, smelling, touching, and tasting. It does not take into consideration that what you really are is a spiritual being having a physical experience. Your ego believes that the earth is your home and that all you are is related to your life on this planet, now, in this body. Many people believe that their current physical body and the material things they can accumulate are all that there is, and that this is the only way that their value is realized or evident, the only way for you to be happy and fulfilled. Your ego can also be described as the constant stream of thoughts and fear-based emotions that occupy your waking days. Ego is the home of your intellect, habits, addictions, baser emotions, impulses, and instincts. The ego, which is known as the lower self or shadow self, is disconnected from your spiritual self, and its behaviors are generally governed by fear. The ego will constantly take you away from the present moment through endless chatterbox thinking, causing you to dwell on the past or speculate on the future, keeping you from living in the present moment. It will keep you from connecting to your real self, also known as your spiritual self or that small voice within. You are more than your physical being and your ego self. You also have a soul or spiritual self. Your soul is unique from every other person's soul and is believed to be that part of you that is immortal and not limited to one life, nor is it limited by the earth's physical dimensions of time and space. You are spirit. This is who you really are. This is the part of you that is always with you through every incarnation, no matter what form this may take. It knows that the material things we seek on earth, such as wealth, notoriety, youthfulness, physical strength, etc., are fleeting and will diminish over time. These things do not bring the spiritual fulfillment you seek and are not the real reason you are here on this planet, now, in this body, and you cannot bring them with you when you die. Because you are spirit, your senses go well beyond the physical. As spirit, you have access to other dimensions not visible on the physical third-dimensional plane. You have the ability to know, see, feel, taste, touch, and hear things that are beyond your immediate physical third-dimensional presence by using your intuition. You are connected to everything in an energetic way. This is being validated and proven every day by scientists through new understandings of the theory of quantum physics. If you learn to tune into these energies within and outside of yourself, you will be able to see your world from a new perspective, one that understands the real reason for your existence. As taught by the world's great spiritual teachers, Buddha, Jesus, etc., our true purpose is to love, to be kind, to be compassionate and forgiving, and more, to heal human hurts, to teach and to expand these qualities to all souls, so that we may return to our source as one unified spark of God. The chart on the following page highlights the different perspectives of your ego self versus your true soul self. Your non-physical spiritual self is always aware of what is occurring in the earth plane as well as the heavenly plane, and is immune to the callings of the ego to dwell in the material plane alone. It seeks the inner peace, love, joy, and hope that comes from making a spiritual connection. As quoted from Nisargadatta Maharaj, the world is the abode of desires and fears. You cannot find peace in it. For peace, you must go beyond the world. Your spirit is beyond the world. See the chart in the YouTube version of this book. As noted in the above chart, there are some distinct trait differences between the ego and the true self. If you wish to find peace, serenity, love, and joy, you will need to live your life from the perspective of your true self as often as possible. It will be hard at first because you are a human being raised in a world of materialism, and you were taught to behave in ways that are clearly self-centered and ego-based. But how do you change your ego-based ways to those of your true soul self? You need to take a good look at your thoughts and beliefs. You need to assess when your thoughts and actions are operating from ego instead of the true self. Once you are aware of your current beliefs, thoughts, and actions, you can change those that are ego-based. The following questions can help you become aware of your current belief systems and behaviors. Given your response, you will know whether you are acting from your ego self or true self. You can ask yourself these questions and reflect on your intention with any given situation. Is the main intent to love and learn? True self. Is the main intent to control and get something? Ego self. Is fear involved, or are you trying to control how you feel or how other people feel about you? Ego self. Are you trying to control what you get? Things, approval, respect, status. Ego self. Is your intention to love yourself and others? True self. Are you trying to learn how to express yourself or to grow your personal power? True self. Another way to assess which belief system and or attitude you are operating from is to look at the following list. It is not all-inclusive, but it provides descriptions of belief systems and or attitudes of the ego self and the true self. As you go through these descriptions, you can ask yourself these questions to help you identify your behavior patterns. Can you tell which way you usually think, act, or behave? Do you behave more from your ego self or your true self? Where can you improve? Me versus we. Ego is primarily concerned with itself. Ego will want to know what it can get out of this situation or person or experience, whereas the true self is more concerned about how the situation will affect all parties involved and the world in general. How can we all benefit or learn from an experience? The true self knows that we are all connected and understands that if I help my neighbors, I ultimately help myself. Separation versus unity. Ego will generally prefer to remain separate from others and isolate itself. Being around other people may require it to do things it would not be comfortable doing. whereas the true self strives to work with others for the good of all. The soul knows that there is strength in people working together to achieve something that otherwise may not be possible alone. Blame versus understanding. Ego will look to assign blame outside of itself for problems and issues. It will not see the part it has played in creating the problem, but will be quick to point a finger at someone else. The true self, on the other hand, will see that humans are imperfect, living in an imperfect world. When there are problems, it will seek to understand what went wrong, to learn from the situation rather than assigning blame. Hostility versus friendliness. Ego will become overly protective, closed, and even aggressive or hostile with unknown environments, situations, or people. It will be openly hostile if it feels threatened, and will react aggressively if it is provoked. The true self will be open, accepting, and kind or friendly in unknown circumstances. It believes in the innate goodness of all souls, and will trust in its ability to peacefully find solutions, and will smile and hold out a welcoming hand. Resentment versus forgiveness. Ego will resent people or situations that it feels has hurt it in some way or that has caused it problems due to personal errors or omissions. It will not take into consideration extenuating circumstances beyond someone's control. The true self will see the error and understand that this is a complicated world that does not always work in our favor, and will therefore be willing to show compassion and forgive the person or perpetrator, knowing that if life had not been so hard on them, or if things had been different, they would have acted differently. The true self finds it easier to forgive. Pride versus love. See fear versus love below. Ego will be ruled or governed by personal pride because of its feelings of superiority over another person, race, religion, or country, whereas the true self will govern its affairs out of feelings of love for all people, regardless of their race, creed, religion, or country. Complaining versus gratefulness. Ego will be more likely to look for faults in what other people say, think, or do, and compare that to how what they would do is better. Then ego will want to point this out to other people and complain about it. The true self will do quite the opposite by finding the positive in people, things, and situations, and then experience a sense of gratefulness for these. The true self will find ways to be grateful for the same things that the ego will complain about. Jealousy versus shared happiness. Ego will be envious and jealous of the accomplishments of others because their self-centeredness makes them believe the opportunities or accomplishments should belong to them and not another. The true self will be truly happy for the successes and accomplishments of others and sincerely wish them well with their success. They know that if some other soul has achieved happiness, they too are capable of the same when the time is right. Anger versus positivity. Ego will get angry at the smallest inconvenience or at problems created by people, places, and things. Ego expects others to deliver to them at the highest standard, and when the desired outcome is not met, the ego will feel insulted and get angry. The true self realizes that this existence is far from perfect and will be very accepting and forgiving when expectations are not met. The soul is aware of the dichotomy in life and will see the humor or beauty in problem situations and will find something to be grateful or happy about. Power versus humility. Ego likes power and to be in control. It will seek to be the person who has the final say or who oversees situations, people, or things. The true self is humble and will not seek notoriety in its affairs. It believes in sharing responsibility and in empowering everyone to be their best as equals. No one person is better than the next. Materialism versus spiritualism. Ego is primarily focused on what can be achieved in this lifetime in the way of materialistic things. The true self will be more focused on life choices that enhance their spiritual connection to God. This does not mean that it isn't necessary for the true self to work and support itself and to have a home, car, good pay, etc., but that the choices they make in their work, rest, and play will be not only to support themselves financially, but to also expand their spirituality. Madness versus wisdom. Ego will sometimes act crazy in response to challenges it is faced with. It will throw tantrums, demand attention, and scream and yell to get what it wants. The true self will respond with wisdom and will see the lessons to learn from each challenge thrown its way, and will gracefully accept it and understand that if there is a reason for the challenge, this will be revealed later. God may be preparing us for something wonderful in our future. War versus peace. Ego will readily go to war to fight for justice, or for some right it believes another person or country is violating. It will be the aggressor, or first to strike back. The true self, on the other hand, is a peace-loving soul who abhors killing and hurting others. It would rather find peaceful ways to obtain justice for all. Coldness versus sympathy. Ego is self-centered and interested more in what it can get from people and can be quite cold-hearted when another person is ill, in trouble, or has losses, such as the loss of a job or the death of a loved one. The true self is always compassionate and will be sympathetic to people who are sick, in distress, or in need. It will want to help in whatever way that it can. Past, future-oriented versus present-oriented. The ego will be focused on what has occurred in the past and hold grudges, i.e., who did what to whom or what mistakes they or others have made, and will be looking to protect itself and to ensure this doesn't happen again. The ego also is always worrying about the future. Because of this, the ego is unable to enjoy the present day. The true self is more interested in living in the present and what is happening today. It is concerned with what people are doing now, not what they did yesterday. The true self knows there is no value in reliving the past or worrying about the future. It realizes that yesterday is gone and tomorrow will look after itself. Intolerance versus tolerance. Ego does not like things to change and is very intolerant of anything that is not the way it believes it should be. Ego likes things to be done my way or the highway, and is very quick to let you know if things are not the way they like them. The true self, or soul, is very open to new ideas or ways to accomplish things, and will be quite tolerant of change. The true self will see change as an opportunity for growth. Self-importance versus shared importance. Ego will be only concerned with how it will win in any given situation or relationship. Its needs, wants, and desires come first and foremost because, in its estimation, its needs, wants, and desires are more important. The true self will always be concerned not only for its needs, wants, and desires, but for those of others equally. It will be willing to negotiate and compromise for the sake of everyone's interests. Egoism versus altruism. Egoism can be defined as acting out of pure desire for self-preservation on an individual level. In other words, ego will be ultimately selfish. Altruism can be defined as acting out of pure selflessness, with no apparent benefit or underlying cause for oneself. Therefore, the true self will be selflessly motivated. Self-denial versus self-acceptance. Ego will constantly deny its own worth and value. It will negate, humiliate, manipulate, denigrate, coerce, and deny its ability to do what is in its best interest. The true self will openly, enthusiastically, and lovingly let you know that you are perfect the way you are, with all your little quirks, and trust you fully to choose what is in your best interests. Social intolerance versus social acceptance. Ego has very limiting beliefs regarding what is socially acceptable. Looks, behaviors, material wealth, race, religion, etc., and will be very rigid on what it believes meets its expectations. It will judge each person and situation with this rigidity and cast off as not acceptable those that do not fit the mold. The true self will openly accept all people of all race, color, and creed at all social levels as equals. It will notice the external differences, personality traits, etc., but not assign weight to these, because it knows that all humans have inner true selves that are equally beautiful and acceptable. Status seeking versus simplicity. Ego is very concerned with how it appears to others, because to ego, appearances matter. That is why it is important for ego to live up to the same standard as the Joneses. To get the best car, the best job, the best clothes, best partner, always comparing itself to others and making judgments as to who has the best of whatever is being considered. The true self is happy to have just enough to meet its physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual needs. The simpler the method of meeting the need, the better. Doing versus just being. Ego is constantly thinking and scheming of doing or becoming something that it currently is not. It will always be in motion, moving towards these personal goals, and rarely rests to smell the roses. The true self believes in working and achieving things, but is doing this from the vantage point of being in the present moment and being grateful for what it already has in front of it. Competition versus creation. Ego has the need to compete and to win, because winning gives the illusion of control. For the person ruled by the ego, having more than others provides more control over others, places, and things. The true self, on the other hand, is empowered by creating, the creative flow and need to create for self-expression. The more the true self expresses itself through creativity, the more empowered it becomes. The soul has no need to obtain anything, because it is able to create itself into empowerment. Luck versus alignment. Ego wants to get lucky, while the true self wants to be aligned. The soul embodies what it wants to create and aligns to its creative visions and realizes them through this alignment. Luck plays no part. A soul knows it can only become what it is meant to become or to achieve if it is making decisions aligned to its creative visions. Soul-powered people don't dream of getting advantages and material gains. They are what they need to be. Security versus mystery. Ego wants security and has a need to know what to expect, and is very uncomfortable with having its plans questioned, ridiculed, or criticized. Ego has a need to be smarter than everyone else and takes power from the illusion of having more knowledge. The true self is comfortable with mystery and knows that mystery is the place where illusions begin to dissolve and freedom emerges. The true self doesn't need to be right to be powerful, because it is free to follow what it knows it must do to grow and expand. Safety versus growth. Ego goes for what is safe: money, status, respect. The true self knows these things are transient and are not safe. The soul knows that real confidence comes from knowing that it can handle any situation and grow from it. The soul experiences creativity and growth not through increasing its level of safety, but from its unconditional capacity for expansion. Fear versus love. Ego is ruled by fear. Because of its need to feel safe and secure, the ego is always looking to get more to feel safe. The true self is ruled by love and wants to express love in every way that it can, through self-love, self-expression, sharing, giving, creating, and joy. Moving into the intention to love and learning about love creates a shift into living from the true self. Scarcity versus abundance. Ego believes there are limits, whereas the true self knows that the ego creates all limits. The process of transcending these limits is at the essence of soul's creativity. Through creativity, the soul can expand their limits and access unlimited abundance. Where there is lack, the soul will create something from thin air. Because the soul is always creating, it doesn't worry about where things will come from. Instead, it fills itself up and shares what it has with the world. There is no need to hoard anything because of the unlimited abundance. Victim versus responsibility. Ego thinks of things as happening to it, while the true self knows that it co-creates everything. Because the soul is creative, it generates its own opportunities for growth and takes responsibility for this growth. Creativity flows and opportunities expand for the soul when it takes responsibility for its own growth by transcending the limits placed by the ego. Frustration versus gratitude. Because ego wants to control, it becomes ultra frustrated whenever control is lost. The true self doesn't need to control. It becomes empowered by learning the lesson of how to love, however it shows up. The true self is naturally grateful and humble, and knows it can find power in great challenges, because it isn't blocked by the intention to control. Fantasy versus vision. Ego loves the fantasy of power. It fantasizes about saying and doing clever things and making big gains. The true self instead listens for visions of what it can create. By living the vision and realizing its creativity, the true self finds its expression in the world and shares its unique message. Problem focus versus solution focus. Because ego needs to control, it is controlled by its problems. The true self isn't controlled by anything, and therefore focuses on what needs to be created. The soul is naturally solution-oriented because creative energy is problem-solving energy. Risk versus commitment. Ego thinks only in terms of what it might lose and isn't interested in working on anything where it might risk losing something or not getting anything back. The true self, on the other hand, thinks about what it must give. The soul's commitment to a person, place, or project is an expression of this giving. Once you have determined your regular behavior patterns, you will know where you need to make changes to move from ego-based behaviors to behaving more like your true self. This will not be easy because it has taken you a long time to develop the belief systems you currently possess. And ego will challenge you every step of the way because it wants to control. But be consistent. Set the intention to change where you want to change. Practice the new behavior again and again until it becomes your norm to act from the true self. Congratulations. You have begun your journey to finding heaven on earth. The next chapter will talk about the next step on the stairway: separation and atonement.